So
My understanding is that your conclusion is that Jesus Christ was a messianic prophet.
I think he thought that he was a son of God in the sense that he was specially chosen by God. I think Jesus really did think he was going to be the Messiah, the future king of Israel. I mean, that is, after all, why they crucified him. I think that that's historically right. I think that all of these gospel authors, I think all of them think that in some sense, Jesus is God. If you think that the Bible cannot have any mistakes in it, if you're shown a mistake, then you just refuse to admit it's a mistake. You think either it can be reconciled in some way or that there.
Okay, now do you see now watching that clip, watching that brief clip, what Mohammed Hijab was trying to do was he was trying to get Bart Ehrman to speak against the Quran, or I'm sorry, he was trying to get Bart Ehrman to agree with the Quran, where he wanted Ehrman to agree that Jesus was a messianic prophet or an apocalyptic prophet. Now, notice what Ehrman responds. He doesn't agree. He says, well, in some sense, the gospel writers thought that Jesus was divine. Yet in other places, Bart Ehrman says that Jesus and God are separated. I remember watching a debate between him and Justin Bass, and he was saying, and Ehrman was saying that 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 6 was talking about the separation of God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. So now notice what Ehrman is trying to do. He's trying to disagree with literally everything Mohammed Hijab is saying, and he's trying to, and he's, trying to, I don't know, confirm the Christian view of Jesus. Yet in other places where David Wood and Apus interviewed him, he's confirming the Islamic view of Jesus. So which is it? What does Ehrman believe? It's like he's saying the exact opposite of whatever you want him to say. So this is exactly the reason why I don't want Ehrman on my channel. He's going to disagree with everything I say. He's gonna, he's gonna cause more problems on my. He's gonna cause more doubt to Muslims if I get him on my channel. Notice what Mohammed Hijab was trying to do. He was trying to get Ehrman to agree with the Islamic position, but yet Ehrman is saying things that are completely different than what he says in his book, How Jesus Became God. So it's very confusing what Ehrman is saying here. Or I think I know what Ehrman's trying to do. He's just trying to disagree with Mohammed Hijab because he doesn't want to be used by anybody. He doesn't want to be used by Christian apologists. He doesn't want to be used by atheists, and he certainly doesn't want to be used by Muslims for Christian atheist or Muslim agendas. So this is look at his responses. Look at Ehrman's responses, and look at the fact that he brings up Jesus' crucifixion. Yet earlier in this interview, he says he doesn't believe in God. Ehrman doesn't believe in God. So if Ehrman doesn't believe in God, if Ehrman believes that there is no God, he's not going to believe in any kind of supernatural or divine intervention when it comes to Jesus' crucifixion. He's not going to say, well, Jesus survived through a miracle, because Ehrman doesn't believe in miracles. He doesn't believe in the supernatural. He doesn't believe in God. So, of course, given his atheistic views, if someone is crucified according to these naturalistic atheists, they're going to conclude that a man crucified has died, even though, because of their naturalistic views, even though the New Testament is filled with supernatural occurrences of Jesus. So it's not unreasonable for a theist to say Jesus survived the crucifixion, because theists do believe in miracles, the supernatural, God, etc. So why can't God keep Jesus alive through the crucifixion? I mean, in a world where God exists, it's certainly possible, but Ehrman rejects the virgin birth, Jesus' miracles. He rejects all that because he doesn't believe in the supernatural. So, of course, he's going to conclude Jesus' death on the cross, but that's a separate issue. I'm trying to, the point of this video is not to talk about the crucifixion. It's to talk about the crucifixion of Jesus and, supernatural intervention or anything like that. It's to talk about the inconsistency of Ehrman's answers. Elsewhere, if you read his book, How Jesus Became God, he conclusively proves that Jesus started off as a prophet, and then later on, after the crucifixion, people made up the story of Jesus being, divine, or in the same term, or you know, Jesus' divinity developed over time. And when you read the Gospel of John, now you're talking about that. But that's not what Jesus was saying in the Gospel of Mark, Mark, and Luke. He was talking about Jesus doesn't identify himself as God. And Ehrman admits this in his book, How Jesus Became God. He talks about how Paul, even Paul had a different idea of what the Lord Jesus and God the Father were. They were separate beings, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 6, etc., etc. So, but look at what he's saying. He's disagreeing with Mohammed Hijab's, he's disagreeing with Mohammed Hijab's question, and he's not answering the question the way Mohammed Hijab hoped he would answer the question. Ehrman's like contradicting his book, How Jesus Became God, because he talks about how, the divinity of Jesus was developed as time went on. And all you got to do is read the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, and John to see, the evolution of the status of Jesus. So, I mean, just look at this inconsistency. Look at this inconsistency in Ehrman's answers. He's not going to be used by Hijab, and he wasn't going to be used by James White or David Wood or Apus either, because he was disagreeing with all those guys. He was disagreeing with all those atheists and Christians who debated or interviewed him. Same thing with Muslims. So this is the same thing with the case with Mohammed Hijab. Mohammed Hijab, of course, being a Muslim apologist. So this is the reason why it's not a good idea getting Ehrman on my channel. He is going to disagree with everything I say. He's not going to say what I want him to say, or he's not going to say what we Muslims want him to say, and he's going to contradict his own books when it comes to his interviews, etc. So, hey, if some Muslim has a way to get him to say to get him to agree with the Quran's view when you're interviewing him, go for it, be my guest, but I don't think it's going to happen. So that's why I advise Muslims, use his scholarship, use his research, use his books, use his debates, use his lectures, etc., to prove the Islamic position that the New Testament's corrupt, Jesus is just a prophet, the divinity of Jesus developed over time. That's not what the earliest Christians were preaching. Use his works to prove those things, or to prove those points. But don't try to interview him, because he knows what you're doing and he's not going to fall for it. Ehrman is a true scholar, and true scholars aren't going to be used by anybody. So they're going to say what they think is right. And if he gets whiff that you're using him to further your agenda, like Mohammed Hijab tried to use Ehrman to further his agenda, and Wood and Apus tried to use Ehrman to further their agenda. James White years ago tried to get Ehrman to use him for his agenda against Islam. All three of these guys failed, and Mohammed Hijab failed too. So you can't use Ehrman to further your agenda. All you can do is use his material or his scholarship and just leave it at that. So I think that's the best way we Muslim apologists can deal with Ehrman. Stay tuned, more videos coming up ahead.